I want to tell you this. All these supplements that we've gone over today, they all have evidence that shows that they work. The more powerful ones, the stimulants, work better than the non-stimulant ones, but they come at a cost. Anxiety, elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, elevated stress response, irritability. And what I want to tell you is that you don't need to take any of these supplements. And if you're struggling with this and you think that it's a supplement that's going to help you, it's not. You can get zero results from buying a bottle of any of this stuff and taking it if you don't adjust your nutrition and exercise. What's up, my friend? I'm health expert Ted Ryce, and today I'm coming to you from the south of Thailand in Phuket, where the beach is just a 15-minute walk away from where we're staying. But today, we're not going to be talking about the beach or anything like that because I am coming back to you with my next installment of my supplement series. We're going to be talking about, yes, the thing that so many people want to know and ask me about, fat loss supplements today. And by the way, if you're tuning in to the Legendary Life podcast for the first time, this is a show that's all about clearing up health and fitness confusion by breaking down science-based information on how to lose fat, prevent disease, and live a longer, healthier life. So if that's what you're interested in, you're in the right place. And for those of you who have been listening for a while and haven't subscribed to our supplement guide list, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/supplements. And you might say, well, why would I want to do that, Ted? I get to hear it on the podcast. Well, yeah. And if that's cool with you and you take notes and everything works out for you, great. However, I'm going to be going over specific products, which ones to take, also which ones not to take. And I'm going to be going over specific dosages and brand recommendations. So that's going to be kind of hard to pick up on, at least for some of you, on just an audio podcast. So again, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/review and you can download for free, by the way. We're just doing this just to step up, just to do more for the podcast, more for you. So go to legendarylifepodcast.com/review and you will get the video presentations as well as the PDF downloads with all the links, and you can save it as a PDF on your computer and that type of thing. Okay, let's just jump right in, shall we? And the first thing I need to jump into before we jump into the things that you really want to hear is just a medical disclaimer. So this presentation, which really this podcast is more of a masterclass, supplement masterclass, it's general health information for adults over 18. And the information I'm going to be sharing with you is strictly educational and it ain't medical advice. So if you have any type of issues with your health, if you're on medication, make sure you consult with a medical professional before you try anything. And really, you should consult with a medical professional before you begin any exercise, nutrition, or supplement related program. And what are we going to be diving into here? So this presentation, this masterclass really is built on evaluating scientific studies. Why am I doing that? Why am I not just telling you from my experience? Well, I will do that. But more importantly than my experience, or at least as important as my experience, if not more important, is what the research says works. Why am I saying that? Because research, when it's done correctly, it tests a supplement against a sugar pill. And based on that test, we'll see, okay, well, the sugar pill, by the way, the placebo or sugar pill usually gives results, by the way. So that's important to know. And that's why we need to tease out, okay, is this product really working, or do people just believe in it? And just because of their belief in it and their positive belief in it, it's working for them in creating some type of change, whether that be physiological or psychological or behavioral, whatever. Really important. That I can't overstate that enough. So keep that in mind and understand that some supplements, especially some of the ones that we're going to be talking about here, are contraindicated for certain medical conditions and may interact with medications that you might be taking. So again, be responsible. And I'll say this, most of you, the ones who have been listening for a while, I know you're responsible. I know you come to this podcast and not the other ones that make crazy claims because you trust me, you have faith in me to steer you right. That said, if you're listening to this and you're new to the show, just understand that you really got to be responsible with what I'm going to be sharing today, because some of it is even potentially dangerous. Because some of the fat loss supplements, that's how they work. So again, one other preface before we jump into the supplements is that, look, keep in mind that fat loss ultimately comes down to energy balance. In other words, you got to be burning more energy than you take in to lose fat, okay, to lose weight. That is how it works, regardless of who's told you otherwise. That is the most important part and most important thing I can tell you. And if you go and look on some of the links to the supplements and read the reviews, and people say, well, I didn't lose any weight taking this supplement, it's because they sat on their ass and took a pill and nothing happened. Of course, nothing happened. So the supplements we're going to be talking about only influence how much energy you're taking in other words, your hunger, or how much energy you're burning. And we'll talk about what that is. That's thermogenesis. And ultimately, adjusting your nutrition is how you create fat loss. That said, if you're on a fat loss nutrition plan and workout routine, there are some supplements that can help. And the first one I want to dive into is protein. So protein can support fat loss in several different ways. First of all, specifically with regarding fat loss. Now, you can lose weight in a lot of different ways. You can do fasting, you can do the master's cleanse, you can do the cabbage soup diet, you can, do the potato hack. There's so many ridiculous, silly ways of losing weight and losing it quickly, really. The problem with weight loss, most weight loss methods, and especially the trendy, fatty, quick, fast weight loss methods is, you lose weight, you lose water. And when you lose water, you look leaner, but then it just comes right back. That's the problem, because you can't stay dehydrated forever. All right. So understand that protein helps you build or maintain your muscle when you're losing weight. What does that mean? That means most people, if their protein is low, they end up losing a lot of muscle mass. And that is not what you want to do. That's like downgrading your house. It's like downgrading your car. It's like being demoted at work. You don't lose muscle. You're going to have to fight to keep muscle for the rest of your life, because naturally we start to lose muscle. So you don't want to do something silly like go on some weight loss plan that's low in protein, where you end up losing, like, I lost 10 pounds, but 5 of it was muscle. Or you lost 20 pounds and 10 of it was muscle, or 7 of it was muscle. That's terrible. And you're going to feel terrible. So protein is ultra important for that reason. The second thing is that protein helps with hunger. In other words, if you eat a protein heavy meal, you feel less hungry after, whether compared to whether you eat a carb heavy meal or a fat heavy meal. This influences how much you eat and therefore fat loss. And the third thing is a little bit more complicated and has to do with how protein gets digested, because protein has a higher thermic effect of feeding. Now, what is that? Some of you know it because I've talked about it before, but if you've never heard of that before, it's simply this. Everything costs energy to do in your body. That's why people who say, calories don't matter, that type of thing, it's like, how do you make fat from nothing? You make it from hormones? No. You have to make hormones from raw materials. You've got to make muscle from raw material. And even to make, to turn a raw material into whatever that end product is for your body takes energy. So digestion is an energy intensive process. That said, meals that contain mostly carbs or fat or mixed meals, having kind of equal amounts of the different macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fat, only burn up to about 10% of the energy in that meal. So for example, if you ate 1,000 calories, just to make the math easy here, and it was a mixture of proteins, carbs, and fat, 100 calories would be used in the digestion of that meal versus a protein heavy meal can take up to 30% of the energy. So what I'm trying to say here is that if you kept the amount of food you're eating the same, but adjusted the percentage of protein up, it's going to be so much easier to lose fat, and it'll help with your energy level. So I hope that's clear. I'm not going to talk too much about it because we're going to be talking about the supplements here. Now, here's the thing. Whole food protein choices should be your first choice. It's a better source of protein for maintaining, building muscle, and eating a real food like chicken or any type of protein, eggs, will help you feel more full than protein supplements. That said, the reality of our busy lives is that many of my clients have a hard time eating enough protein from whole food sources. So adding protein powder supplements can really help make getting protein in much more convenient. And I'll tell you this, I won't say heavily on protein powder, but I use protein powder a lot. And I rely on it a lot, and it works. Now, I'm not saying all your meals should be protein powder. I'm saying to adjust the amount of protein that you have per day. It's easy just to make a shake. It's just really easy to have instead of whipping up an egg white omelet, for example. Now, you've heard of whey protein, of course, but there are actually two types of protein sources in milk protein. That's where whey comes from. So milk protein is actually only 20% whey and 80% casein. Now, you may not have heard of casein before, but casein is really interesting because it gets digested more slowly and is often seen as the ideal protein for people struggling with hunger because of that. And it's better for maintaining muscle as well, as opposed to maybe building muscle. So if you're on a fat loss plan and you're losing weight, casein might help you preserve muscle better. But even, if it's not that big of a deal overweight, it digests more slowly and will help you with your hunger. And of course, I've talked about this in the muscle building and performance supplement presentation. But what if you're lactose intolerant? Can you still use whey or casein? Well, I would stick with whey protein isolate, by the way, instead of concentrate. So whey protein isolate because it contains very little lactose. And if you're a vegan, I recommend taking a pea protein and grain protein blend. Those are considered the vegan alternative to whey protein due to their similar amino acid profiles. Now, probably not as effective, okay? In general, animal-based protein, and I'm not going to go too deep into this, is superior for building muscle, maintaining muscle over plant-based protein because of the amino acid profile. It has nothing to do with the complete protein, incomplete protein thing you may have heard about before in the past. It has to do with specifically the amount of leucine. So how much protein should you take? Well, the amount of protein you should eat every day should be based on your body weight and not how many calories you're eating. So if you're at a healthy weight and you work out, make your daily protein target in the range of 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. And if you're overweight or obese, make your daily protein target in the range of 0.54 to 0.68 per gram of body weight. Why? Because a greater percentage of your body weight is fat. And you don't need to be feeding your fat with protein. It doesn't do anything. You're trying to maintain your muscle here. And so you need to cut down. And if you want to avoid doing the math, which, by the way, I don't recommend, take 1 serving of your protein shake 2 to 3 times per day. Now, what is the recommendation brand-wise that I'll tell you? Well, I like BioTrust protein. And it's 24 grams of grass-fed protein from pasture-raised cows in each serving. It tastes delicious, only has 4 grams of carbs per serving. And it's just a high-quality protein powder. And I can save you 27% off of BioTrust if you use the code FALL27. So that's all capital letters, FALL 27. You could also use Dimetize, and you can get that from Amazon. You can use Dimetize casein or whey. And if you are a plant-based person, I recommend Organifi Complete Protein. So it's a mixture of pea, quinoa, hemp. It also has some coconut, monk fruit, cinnamon, vanilla bean. It tastes delicious. And I can save you some money on this one. If you use the code, all capital letters, of course, TED20, that's TED20, you can save 20% on your first order. So that's protein. That's the first supplement. What's the second supplement? The second supplement is 5-hydroxytryptophan, or 5-HTP. Now, while that may seem like something that's made in a laboratory, it's actually a naturally occurring chemical that your body uses to make the neurotransmitter serotonin and the hormone melatonin. But more specifically to serotonin, what we know is that lower serotonin levels are found in people with depression. That's why they get SSRIs. Very common to have selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor to prescribe to people who are clinically depressed, and people who have high levels of chronic inflammation. For example, if you have metabolic syndrome, if you're pre-diabetic, or if you're full-blown diabetic, if you have high blood sugar, you have higher levels of inflammation in your body. And that may lead to lower serotonin levels. In fact, they found that, you know how you may have struggled with motivation to exercise, particularly if you're overweight or obese. Well, that may be not just because I'm just not motivated, It may be because the inflammation, it affects your brain. So supplementing with 5-HTP improves serotonin signaling, which can do several different things. Specifically for fat loss, it may reduce carbohydrate cravings. So if you're a person who craves carbohydrates, several studies have shown that supplementing with 5-HTP has helped overweight women and men to control their appetite, especially again with these carbohydrate cravings. Why? Because carbs help get the amino acid tryptophan through the blood-brain barrier and helps increase serotonin levels. So that carbohydrate craving might be a sign that serotonin levels are a bit lower than they should be. If you're eating well and doing a lot of things, but you're still finding you're having this issue, of course, you want to relieve or resolve the issue that's causing you to feel bad or depressed or, whatever. But 5-HTP has been used with success to restore serotonin levels in those that may suffer from decreased levels. And also, again, going back to the fat loss, fewer and less intense carbohydrate cravings can lead to eating fewer calories and thus weight loss. So the current evidence suggests that 5-HTP will benefit people with obesity and or metabolic syndrome / diabetes the most. That said, if you're healthy weight but struggle with carb cravings, it would be worth a try. Now, I've used 5-HTP in the past, but for anti-anxiety reasons, actually, and for sleep. But, and I noticed a difference. It kind of calms you, kind of chills you out. And we'll talk about timing and dosages in a second. But one thing I want to let you know is that it's really important that if you're currently taking antidepressants or tramadol, which I believe is an antidepressant, but it's also prescribed for people who are struggling with sleep, or dextromorphin, or other medications that affect serotonin levels, you want to avoid taking 5-HTP, as you can end up with a condition called serotonin syndrome, and that can lead to you going to the hospital because you have a hypertensive crisis. It can spike your blood pressure to dangerous levels and cause other things, other side effects. So how much should you take? Well, take either 300 to 500 milligrams once per day or 100 to 250 milligrams twice per day. And preferably, you would take it 30 minutes before a meal. And especially if there's a time of the day that you struggle with carbohydrate cravings, maybe in the afternoon, although you might want to split the dosages up because taking 300 to 500 milligrams of 5-HTP might chill you out a little bit too much to get your work done. So you may be not having the cravings, but you may feel like taking a nap. So again, you got to experiment with the timing on this. I like taking it in the evening or during the day if I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety. Again, haven't needed this stuff, but I do want to experiment with it a little bit more. Haven't taken it in a long time because it's not something readily available in Asia, where I've been living for the past 2 years. But when I get back to the States in a month, I'm going to be experimenting with all this stuff, and I'll be able to share more about it. So it may reduce food cravings before bed. It might even help you improve your sleep quality if you take it right before you go to bed. Last thing I'll say about this, you should stop taking 5-HTP after a while to make sure you're still experiencing the benefit or not. And if you stop taking it and you don't notice a difference, probably stop taking it for good then. But if you notice a difference, like, oh, wow, I really feel like my cravings come back, or I'm not sleeping as well, then you can go back on. But it's good to periodically get off things. That goes with all supplements except for, protein powder or something like that. And my brand recommendation for 5-HTP is Thorne, Thorne. Now, I don't have a relationship. I can't save you any money. I would love to. It's a great company. So you've got to go to Amazon to buy it. The next supplement, epigallocatechin gallate, otherwise known as EGCG. So let's start out talking about EGCG like this. Tea is the most popular beverage in the world after water and has a history spanning thousands of years. Although there are many kinds of herbal infusions, when I say tea, I'm specifically talking about tea made from the leaf of the Camellia sinensis plant. This is important because the EGCG is a type of chemical called a catechin, and it's only found in this Camellia sinensis tea plant. And out of the 5 different catechins found in tea, EGCG, or epigallocatechin gallate, is the most abundant and carries the most health benefits. And it's also responsible for the fat-burning properties of green tea. And another important thing here is that I specifically referred to green tea. And the reason is that it's the least fermented type of tea, because you may wonder, well, green tea, I like oolong tea better. In fact, I do like oolong tea better. Well, the issue there is green tea is the least fermented. So oolong is more fermented, so is yellow, and so is black tea. So green tea is the best option if you're looking to get high levels of the EGCG. And so how does this EGCG work? Well, it works by inhibiting an enzyme called catechol-O-methyltransferase, or COMT. Now, COMT breaks down a class of chemicals in your body known as catecholamines. Now, if you're super nerdy into the brain, you know what this is. Catecholamines are dopamine, which is a neurotransmitter, norepinephrine, which is, called sometimes a neurohormone or neurotransmitter, and epinephrine. And epinephrine is just the word we use in America for adrenaline. So dopamine, norepinephrine, and adrenaline. And we don't use the word adrenaline because it's trademarked. So we use the word epinephrine in the United States. Okay, so when EGCG inhibits COMT, it allows these catecholamines, the dopamine, and more specifically the norepinephrine and adrenaline, to release stored fat over a longer period of time. Really important though, so your fatty acids get stored in your body fat. And so to release them is the first step in fat burning. And so this can help release more stored fat. However, if you just release stored fat into your circulation, but you don't burn it off because you're not on the proper nutrition program and exercise program, it ain't going to go anywhere except probably stored back. And so it's going to get released into circulation. Then just like food that you eat, the fats that you eat in your diet, those go into your circulation too. And they get stored on your body as body fat if you are eating too much. So the point is, you've got to be already doing the right things nutrition-wise and exercise-wise for this to work. However, when in a study, actually several studies have shown that participants who are already in a weight loss program, who also took EGCG, they lost an additional 1.5 to 5.5 pounds more than the placebo group over a 12-week period. While it's not that impressive, it is still another 1.5 to 5.5 pounds of weight loss. So it's worth experimenting with. So how much should you take? Well, the studies show that in between 400 and 500 milligrams of EGCG per day is the amount that creates this effect. And if you'd rather drink tea than take a supplement, just know that EGCG content of your standard cup of green tea can vary a lot. How much are we talking about? 50 milligrams to more than 100 milligrams per cup. So you'll need to drink in between 4 to 8 cups a day to reach the minimum EGCG dose for fat burning. Another thing, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, is that caffeine, taking EGCG along with caffeine, or making sure you drink green tea, which has caffeine in it, actually works synergistically to help you lose more fat, but only if you don't take caffeine regularly. So if you're already pounding coffee and you start taking EGCG and expect the coffee, you dial in your caffeine dose along with the coffee, or maybe you just switch to the 4 to 8 cups of green tea, you may not really notice that much because you already built a tolerance to caffeine. So what EGCG product do I recommend? Source Naturals EGCG. Now, I don't have a relationship with them, so you'll have to find that on Amazon or go to legendarylifepodcast.com/supplements and get the PDF download, and we hook you up with the links to make it easy. I've used Source Naturals products. I love their melatonin, and I've tried so many different melatonin products, but I love their melatonin. They just are a solid company as far as I know. And I've been at this for a long time. I've been taking supplements a good 10 years, if not more, longer than I've been in the 20 years I've been in the health and fitness industry. So that means I've been looking for shortcuts for a long time, is what that really means. Back to the presentation. So caffeine is the next supplement we're going to talk about. So besides having that beneficial boost your mood and energy levels, caffeine can also help with fat loss by causing adrenaline and dopamine to be released. And again, kind of similar to EGCG, it helps release the fatty acids from your stored fat, but it also does a couple other things that we'll talk about. Just keep in mind that you build up a resistance to caffeine's effects, especially if you're a regular caffeine drinker or user as a supplement. And as you build up the tolerance, its stimulating effects aren't that strong, and the fat loss benefit doesn't work as well either. So it's best to stop using high doses of caffeine that I'll be recommending here, or it's better to use the high doses of caffeine that I'll be recommending here for a limited period of time, and then you're going to stop. And I'll talk about exactly, if you're curious, stay for the whole presentation, because I'll talk about exactly how long to take, exactly how long to stop for, etc. Just not that you need to know this, that you haven't experienced it, but caffeine can also disrupt your sleep. And this can have a negative effect on your hunger and recovery levels, which then drives you to eat more and exercise less. So you really got to make sure that you're doing the right thing here with caffeine, so you don't end up with more problems with fat loss instead of, less. So how much caffeine should you be taking? Well, to supplement caffeine, what you wanted for fat loss purposes, you want to take in between 100 to 200 milligrams twice a day. That's a total of 200 to 400 milligrams per day. And you can get this amount of caffeine through coffee or tea if you want. You'll just have to Google the sources and make sure you're hitting the right amount in terms of milligrams. And if you do it through drinking tea or coffee, you get the added benefits of the antioxidants. Just an important point that I want to say here is don't supplement caffeine if you get enough through drinking tea and coffee. Don't take supplements and tea and coffee together. Another thing is that people who aren't used to caffeine should start at the low end of the range and decide whether to add from there. I'm super sensitive to caffeine. I'm going over this because it's in pre-workouts. A lot of people take caffeine. I don't personally recommend this for the majority of people. Some people are sensitive to stimulants like myself, and you should start always by supplementing caffeine by itself before mixing it with the other things that I'm going to be talking about here. And again, I'll go into those details in a bit. The one thing I'll say about caffeine is mixing in an equal amount of L-theanine can help boost the cognitive effects while reducing jitteriness. And a couple other things about this is just keep in mind that genetics and other factors influence how you respond to caffeine. So again, tread lightly, be responsible. Don't have a freak out nervous breakdown because you took too many caffeine pills. The caffeine supplement I recommend is from Natural Stacks, and it's called Natural Stacks Smart Caffeine. And I like this because they mix caffeine together with L-theanine already in one supplement. And I can save you 25% off your first order if you use the code Legendary15. So all capital letters, Legendary15 at the Natural Stacks website. So let's move on to the next supplement, which is yohimbine. So you may have heard of yohimbine before, or maybe not, but it's a class of chemicals known as alkaloids, and it's found in the bark of the African tree called yohimbe. And it can help burn fat by, again, increasing adrenaline levels in the body and inhibiting a regulatory process in fat cells that normally suppresses fat use. Yohimbine is also marketed as a sexual performance enhancer. In fact, or a fun fact, is that before Viagra, a medication derived from yohimbe tree was often prescribed for erectile dysfunction. And another fun fact here is because the receptors it targets around are found in higher levels around the oblique muscles, the love handle area. In other words, yohimbine has been used by many bodybuilders and physique athletes. In other words, those people who end up posing in their bathing suits and bikinis and board shorts to lose fat from that area. In fact, you may have even seen a topical yohimbine product that is marketed with this goal. And by the way, just to address that, studies don't kind of really support the use of this too much, but there are some studies showing that it might work. Just the evidence isn't very strong, but it's going to cause less side effects than if you ingest it. And we'll talk about that right now. Yohimbe works well. It's one of the things that works well for losing fat. The issue with this is I don't recommend it for the majority of people. It can have serious side effects such as elevated heart rate. Imagine your heart pounding in your chest, getting heart palpitations where your heart skips a beat, increased blood pressure, and anxiety. In fact, studies on anxiety commonly use yohimbine to cause anxiety. And when I've taken yohimbine in the past, when I was in my 20s, I haven't messed around with this in my 30s at all, I noticed that my heart was skipping beats. So I stopped using it because my heart doesn't usually do that. And it was like, dig, 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 like it was just acting so strange. So I would stay away from yohimbine if you have any issues with cardiovascular problems, high blood pressure, anxiety, panic attacks, you want to stay away from that. In fact, if you have panic attacks, yohimbine can cause one panic attack. Some other important facts about yohimbine is that there are drug interactions and other medical contraindications, with specific medical conditions. So if you decide to experiment, really check with your doctor before you start messing around with this. And some people combine yohimbine with other stimulants. This can lead to an increase in the chances of dangerous side effects or even death. In fact, there are several deaths linked to taking high doses of yohimbine. Another thing is be careful of what yohimbine supplements you use, as a recent study found that out of 49 supplements tested, only 2 provided accurate information about the quantity of yohimbine that they contained. And guess what? They were on the higher side. They had stronger dosages than what they had. So they're kind of giving you more than your money's worth in one sense, but they're also making it more likely that you're going to have an issue with this. So keep that in mind. This is important information to know. Now, how much yohimbine should you take? Should you decide that it's a good supplement for you? Well, a typical dose of yohimbine, and I want to say this, yohimbine, not yohimbi extract. We're talking about yohimbine, is 5 to 15 milligrams twice a day of yohimbine. And I highly recommend that you start at the low end before you start taking higher dosages. And supplementation is more effective on an empty stomach, but also increases the chances for side effects. So taking it with meals is going to be less intense of an yohimbine experience. So as far as brand recommendations, I haven't used this in a while. And again, you've got to do your due diligence here. But Primaforce yohimbine, I've used their brand before, and it's a solid brand. So Primaforce yohimbine, and it's in 2.5 milligram dosages. So you could even start with 2.5 milligrams before increasing to 5. And what's more important is I would never take more than what I recommend, but you can always take less. And with stimulants in particular, caffeine, yohimbine, starting with less is a great idea. You start with just a little bit amount and see how it works for you. So Primaforce yohimbine, I don't have a relationship with this company, and I'm not interested in having relationships with companies that, have stimulants as a major offering of theirs. But I wanted to give you a brand recommendation because I didn't want you flying blind. Let's go on to the next supplement here. And before I do, I'll say 2 things. Number 1, if you want to see all the dosages so you can be really meticulous about planning this stuff out, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/supplements to get the presentations. And if you don't want to hear me talk about it again, you can just get the PDF downloads and just look through the presentation. We make all that available. Now, the second thing I have to say is this is a bit of a bonus supplement here. It's called forskolin. It's the main bioactive compound found in the herb known as Coleus forskoli or forskoli. I don't know how to pronounce it properly. Why I'm including this is this herb has been used in Ayurvedic medicine since ancient times. And although further research is needed to confirm these results, it seems that forskolin may increase testosterone in men, and it may protect against cancer and inflammation. And by the way, it's both men and women can use it, just specifically in men. The one study was done in men, which I'll talk about in a second. And it only has that effect in men. So you don't have to worry if you're a woman and you don't want to start growing a beard because of higher testosterone levels. It doesn't work. Most of these naturally occurring compounds like forskolin or resveratrol, they don't have those effects. So although further research is needed to confirm how effective forskolin is, There was an interesting study on overweight and obese men that found taking 250 milligrams of a 10% forskolin extract twice a day helped these men lose more fat and gain more muscle compared to the placebo group over a 12-week period. It also helped a couple interesting things. It helped these guys increase their bone mass and serum-free testosterone levels. Although this testosterone thing, I wouldn't worry too much. It was highly variable, like testosterone is. So don't get too excited about it. I talked about how worthless testosterone boosters are in the muscle growth and workout performance supplement presentation that I did last time. So check that out if you want to hear my rant about it. And anecdotally, many people say that forskolin helps control their appetite. So that's another thing. It was one study, but it was high quality. So it was double-blinded and placebo-controlled. So the results were interesting enough for me to include this supplement in the end as an honorable mention. And another reason, it has a long history of use in Ayurvedic medicine, like maybe ancient use. And many of the Ayurvedic herbs are showing incredible promise in studies. Ashwagandha, I talked about that. Bacopa muniri, Gotu kola. There's so many. And now Coleus forskolii or forskolin. So another interesting effect of forskolin that I wanted to mention is a couple of studies found that it really helped with asthma symptoms. So if you happen to have asthma and want to decrease your symptoms of asthma, it can help. I just wanted to throw that in. So how much should you take of forskolin? Well, the one study is 250 milligrams of a 10% forskolin extract twice a day for a total of 500 milligrams. And I recommend that you start at the low range just to see how you feel before you take the higher range. I'm sorry. I recommend that you start with one pill, right, of 250 milligrams before you move up to the 500 milligrams. And I'll tell you this, I've taken forskolin before in Siltep, Natural Stacks Siltep nootropic product. They put that in there. I've used it on several different times. I've experimented with so many things. So I don't have a strong brand to recommend to you. But what I saw was that the Keto Stat, 100% pure forskolin. I haven't used this product, so I'm just putting that out there. All the other ones that I've talked about, I use. I haven't used this one. It was just, I didn't want you flying blind, and except for the Yohimbe, by the way. But I wanted to just give you I didn't want you to not have a recommendation. So let's talk about which fat loss supplements to avoid because they're just a complete waste of your money. Garcinia cambogia or Cambogia. So it's a popular weight loss supplement, but the initial study that made Garcinia famous was done in the 70s, and it was done in rats. It found that it reduced food intake by as much as 17% and helped them prevent weight gain. So it was assumed that this would apply to people, but rat physiology is different than human physiology. So the majority of studies, including the largest study that had 135 people in it, did not find any difference in weight loss between those people taking Garcinia cambogia and the placebo group. So waste of your money. The next one is conjugated linoleic acid, so CLA. I want to tell you something about CLA. It's a mixture of fatty acids, and it's been investigated to, does this help people burn fat? There were some human studies on it, but they're not really reliable. So there's really no money to spend on your money, no reason to spend your money on CLA unless you like helping supplement companies buy better cars and more vacation homes and support their vacation habits. When I was looking into whether I wanted to start a supplement company or not, just testing the waters, I talked to a supplement manufacturer. So supplement companies do the marketing, the branding, they get people to pay attention to their company through creating content, whatever it is. But there's an actual place that makes the supplements and labels them and does all the work. I talked to one of those places and they were like, hey, you should try selling CLA. And why was he trying to convince? Because I wanted to make other things. I wanted to show or develop and sell things that actually worked. But this dude was like, oh, do a CLA supplement. Why? Because people buy it. It doesn't work, but people buy it. So that gives you a little bit of insight into how the supplement business works. It's not about what works, it's what you can sell to people and what they'll buy. It's complete worthless, don't take it. Next one, Hoodia gordoni. So it's a type of plant traditionally used by indigenous people in South Africa as an appetite suppressant during famines. While we're all trying to lose fat and stay lean, there are places still left in the world where they've got to take stuff like this to help their hunger levels because they don't have enough to eat. And by the way, just an FYI, there's none of them running around that are fat, overweight, or obese because they just can't lose weight because of their darn hormones or their age. They're starving in the famine, and it's not good. Okay, just an FYI there. So there's no research showing that it works. In fact, there's research showing that it doesn't work, is what the research shows. On top of not being effective for fat loss, its side effects include raising blood pressure to kind of worrying levels, and also elevates your liver enzymes, which might mean it's a bit toxic to your liver. So don't take it and throw it away or give it to someone you really don't like. And I'm joking when I said that. Don't just throw it away. Bite the bullet. You got suckered. Just throw it away. Next one, green coffee extract. While green coffee extract does have chlorogenic acid in it, and that has been touted to have antioxidant and anti-inflammatory properties in addition to helping with fat loss, really no evidence to support that it works. So again, you can throw it away. That one you can give to someone you don't like because it's not going to hurt them, although it does have a little bit of caffeine in it. And of course, raspberry ketones. And contrary to its name, raspberry ketones are only found in ultra small, tiny, minuscule amounts in raspberries. And most of them are made synthetically in labs, and it's been used in food and cosmetics for years. But in short, there's no research that shows that raspberry ketones, taking it orally at least, leads to fat loss. The original fat loss claim is from research done in rats, but it again appears that rat physiology is very different than human physiology. We start with rats because they do animal studies before they do human studies, and probably work their way up to primates, I guess, before doing human studies. That said, there's only one study showing that, showing that applying raspberry ketones topically can help with hair regrowth and skin elasticity, but the effects aren't that exciting. All right, so those are the 5 to stay away from. The Garcinia cambogia, CLA, Hoodia, green coffee extract, raspberry ketones. If you bought them, throw them away. They're worthless. So let's talk about putting your fat loss stack together. And the first thing is protein. Dial in your protein, whether you choose to use a supplement or not. Dial in your protein, and we can average it out in the 0.68 to 1 gram of protein per pound per day. Sorry for all my metric system using listeners out there. You'll have to do the conversion. And whether you use a protein supplement or not, dial in your protein. It's one of the most powerful things that you can do. And to be honest, you aren't going to be able to eat all the protein that you're going to have to eat to optimize your fat loss. So just get a supplement. That's the truth there. Okay, in addition to the protein, what you can take is the 5-HTP. And what you would do is you would start at about 300 milligrams per day and increase to about 500 milligrams per day over a week to assess the effects. And again, if you feel better with the 300, stick with that, but you can increase it up to 500 to see if you notice a difference. And you would also stack that with EGCG at 400 to 500 milligrams per day. So again, that would be protein, 5-HTP, and EGCG. And if you want to see all this, in detail, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/supplements, and you can see all the details. Now let's talk about the stimulant fat loss stack. You can take the previous fat loss stack with or without this stimulant stack. So you can take the protein, the 5-HTP, the EGCG, but if you want to go with stimulants, you can add this or just do the stimulants. So take the following dosages twice a day for 12 weeks, followed by a 12-week break. So 12 weeks on, 12 weeks off. And here's what you do. You take 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine, and you start with that. And as you feel the tolerance develop, in other words, you take the caffeine dose and it's not making you crazy or too energetic or too happy or whatever it makes you feel, then you can start to add in synephrine at 10 to 20 milligrams and white willow bark extract at 60 milligrams of salicin. What am I even talking about right now, in case you're wondering? Well, for decades, bodybuilders and physique competitors, in other words, people who pose on stage in little bitty shorts or bikinis or fitness models, and they have to get super lean for a photo shoot, they use the ephedrine caffeine aspirin stack. That said, ephedrine, you can't buy it as a supplement anymore. So what I'm talking about here is approximating that. And you would, again, twice a day, take 100 to 200 milligrams of caffeine, 10 to 20 milligrams of synephrine or bitter orange, and 60 milligrams of white willow bark extract. And specifically, you want to look for the 60 milligrams of salicin on the product. So you take those doses twice a day. And again, go to legendarylifepodcast.com/supplements to see the specifics there. Now let's jump into a couple things here, because I'm about to share with you some information that you probably haven't heard before, and it's probably going to sketch you out a little bit. But I want to say this. One of the things that I'm telling you about this stuff here is not just for you, but I know a lot of you are parents who listen. And if your kids are interested in losing weight, losing fat, supplement companies are marketing this stuff to them. And you can at least help them become educated consumers about what to take, what to stay away from, and how fat loss actually works. So I'm telling it for both you and the benefit for those of you who are parents who may have kids who are looking online, how to lose fat fast. What supplements can I take to lose fat fast? I don't recommend or suggest the stimulants. I have a bias. I should say it like this. I have a bias against taking stimulants. I don't think most people are healthy enough or sleep well enough or have managed stress levels enough to get away with taking stimulants and go through their day and be great at work and be a happy person to be around. It usually makes people hyperwired, irritable, and just terrible to be around. It has a negative effects on your mood. So, but I'm doing it because I'm sharing what actually works with the science, and I want it to be comprehensive here. And also to give you an education on what, again, your children might be taking or looking to take in terms of pre-workouts or fat loss supplements. So let's go into the next frequently asked question here. Can I add a supplement to my stack that's not covered in the guide? Listen, I've gone over everything here that has research backing its use. If you want to play around and experiment, that's on you. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But what I've gone over here, even the stuff that to be honest, I didn't even want to cover it, but I thought, you know what? I need to do a good job. I need to be comprehensive and not just use my bias here. So I covered everything that I think is worth covering, even the things that I disagree with. So I would not mess around. Highly recommend against messing around, especially because if you throw things in the mix that I've already talked about, it can even be counterproductive or dangerous. Now, can you modify the dosages? What I'm going to tell you is, yes, you can take less than what I recommend. You can always, especially with stimulants, take less than what I've recommended and tweak from there. Because if you feel like you took a whole dose and you're like, I'm about to have a nervous breakdown, that's not what you want to experience. And I don't develop much of a tolerance to caffeine in terms of the psychological effects. So I drink a very small dose of coffee or green tea or oolong tea, which I happen to like. But you can always start with less, especially with the stimulants. I will say this though, do not start with less of the protein, all right? Don't start with less of the protein. Dial that in the range. It's not going to be dangerous to you unless you have some sort of kidney disorder. Taking high amounts of protein if you have kidney damage could be an issue. But again, check with your doctor to get specifics about your condition and kidney health. Otherwise, if you're healthy, there's no issue with your kidneys and protein. So don't even sweat it. In fact, you're going to be so much healthier when you have less body fat on you. It's not anything to worry about. So don't mess with the protein amount. Just go for it. It's not even that much protein, really. It's just culturally, it seems like a lot. So stay within the recommended range of what I've mentioned here. The next question is, should you take your supplements with or without food, and what time you should take them? So a lot of these answers we don't have clear, a lot of these questions rather, we don't have clear answers for. Experimenting is the best way to figure out what works for you. And a lot of it has to do with convenience. When the timing was super important, like in the muscle growth and exercise performance supplement presentation, I shared it with you. With this stuff, it really has to do with if you take things with food, it'll have less of an intense effect. Like if you've ever drank coffee on an empty stomach, you'll notice that the caffeine hits you a little bit faster than if you take it after a meal, if you have like a shot of espresso after a meal. Now let's talk about something else. Why isn't ephedrine included in this presentation? And although ephedrine seems to have a fairly safe history of use, it's been banned because several people abused it and died. And you can only get it by prescription. Therefore, I ain't going to recommend it. Okay? I'm not going to recommend that you do anything illegal. What I've suggested instead of ephedrine, just for those of you who know a little bit more about the history of using ephedrine, caffeine, and aspirin, I've suggested synephrine because it's similar to ephedrine. It's also safer from what we know, but it also might be less effective. Then again, it really comes down mostly to your lifestyle, your nutrition, and your exercise. And the last thing I want to talk about, and I want you to pay special attention here because you may have never heard about this before, but unfortunately, there are, I think, over 60 deaths attributed to this chemical called DNP, otherwise known as dinitrophenol. Now, it's illegal for human consumption, but can be legally sold as a pesticide. And why am I telling you this? Because a lot of the people who have died from this are kids looking to lose fat, especially if they're already into body. In fact, one death that I read about was from a bodybuilder guy, not a real bodybuilder, but a guy who is into bodybuilding, a young guy, I think 18 or 20, something like that, into bodybuilding. And another was a medical student. She looked up, obviously she's smart in medical school, looked this stuff up, saw that it's super effective for weight loss and for fat loss specifically, but ended up dying because she got the dosage wrong. And she probably, and we'll talk about this in a second, probably did a good job figuring out the dosage. If you make it to medical school, you've done a shitload of math and of chemistry. The thing is, so DNP works. It rapidly accelerates your metabolic rate. In fact, it makes you hot as hell. And the people who die from DNP, their body just keeps getting hotter and hotter and hotter. In fact, it was marketed as a miracle over-the-counter weight loss drug until dangerous side effects began to surface, like dehydration, cataracts, and death. And in 1938, so this is old school, right? The FDA ruled DMP as extremely dangerous and not fit for human consumption. But the thing is, it's still all over the internet, hiding behind names like Sulfo, Black, Nitro, Cleanup, or Caswell number 392. And since bodies react differently, and since the line between the efficacy and lethality of DMP is super thin, there is no safe range. So what may work for one person might not work for you. And if you overdo it, you could die. And it's a nasty, nasty death where basically people in the hospital are trying to get your temperature down, but you keep getting hotter even though you're in a tub of ice. And I know if you've been listening to the show for a while, this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a long time and finally had the opportunity to talk about it. I've known about it for a long time. I've never messed around with this, never had any inclination towards messing around with it. But that said, I know you're smart enough not to, but your children might not be. And I wanted you to know exactly what dinitrophenol is. And even smart kids have died taking this stuff. Kids in their teens, late teens, and 20s. So I wanted to share that with you. And hopefully you appreciate it. Even though if you could hear the passion in my voice, I'm very strongly opinionated when it comes to that stuff. I really recommend people do things the right way. And I want to tell you this, all these supplements that we've gone over today, they all have evidence that shows that they work. The more powerful ones, the stimulants, work better than the non-stimulant ones, but they come at a cost: anxiety, elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, elevated stress response, irritability. And what I want to tell you is that you don't need to take any of these supplements. And if you're struggling with this and you think that it's a supplement that's going to help you, it's not. You can get zero results from buying a bottle of any of this stuff and taking it if you don't adjust your nutrition and exercise. And I want to tell you, if you are looking forward to beach season next summer, or if you want to get a jump on the new year, new you, or if you want to change your life, you want to make a change, you want to change your body, and you want to do it the right way and not have to spend money on supplements and not have to, play around with dangerous stimulants, you can do this. I don't use any stimulants with any of my clients. Or I haven't yet. If someone really wanted to do it, I would coach them appropriately on it and tell them if I thought it was a bad idea. But we get great results without any of that. And what I'd recommend for you to do if you really want to get this area of your life handled, you really want to figure out fat loss for good, then watch my free on-demand training workshop, the masterclass, in other words, at legendarylifepodcast.com/free. There's a masterclass for women. There's a masterclass for men because we have unique challenges based on our gender when it comes to losing fat, not just physiologically, but psychologically. So I've shared all this today, but I'll tell you, it all comes down to this. All comes down to what you're doing, and all the supplements that I've talked about only work if you're doing the things that I talk about in my free masterclass. So again, legendarylifepodcast.com/free is where you can watch that masterclass and learn what it really takes to transform your body and keep it that way. Hope you enjoyed this. Can't wait to share the next supplement presentation with you.